According to Donald Trump, in that uh, interview that took place several years ago with Oprah Winfrey, but also according to his biographers, so it's not just from the interview that we got this idea, it's also from his biographers. His family success is due to their, quote, good German genes, i.e., white Aryan genes, which, along with his race-baiting rhetoric, helps to explain why he's so attracted to white supremacists who are now trying to rebrand themselves as the alt-right, but they're still neo-Nazis and racists. But Trump also repeatedly refers to his opponents as weak or low energy losers while touting his own stamina and strength and, of course, his stable genius. Social Darwinism is among the most dangerous ideas in human history, spawning enforced sterilization, eugenics, and eventually the Holocaust. But social psychologists have not studied it, perhaps because it was thought to be long discredited morally and scientifically. Scientifically, especially by anthropologists who pointed out over and over again that humans are not like plants and animals because we have culture. Culture is what dictates power relations in society, not our genes. But in order to study it, we looked around for a scale. We couldn't find one, so we had to come up with our own. And here are sample items from our 8-item scale of social Darwinism. The fittest members of our society naturally rise to the top. In the race to the top, nature dictates that those without the superior qualities needed to compete will lose. Social reformers who want to make us all equal just do not understand that people are by nature unequal, and policies that support weaker groups undermine the natural order. They're messing with human welfare if you try to disrupt natural selection. So we hypothesized that social Darwinism might provide the best ideological defense of social hierarchies because it provides a reason for them, i.e. natural selection, that makes social hierarchies so morally good that tampering with them is actually thought to be bad for our species. By contrast, gender essentialism uses biology to explain group differences, much like social Darwinism, but it says nothing about whether social hierarchies are good or bad. The items just don't have any valence to them at all. And then SEO has the flip problem. It measures support for social hierarchies. Yes, these are good. But it's missing any justification for that attitude. Why are they good? Nothing is said about why they might be good. So armed with these three ideologies, after the 2016 election, we asked 422 adults, which of the two major candidates did you prefer, Clinton or Trump? And then they completed measures of gender system justification, social dominance orientation, gender essentialism, and social Darwinism. So our regression showed that after adjusting for demographics like gender, age, political identity, religious identity, education, and SES, socioeconomic status, only political identity and gender system justification significantly predicted rejecting Clinton in favor of Trump. And gender system justification was a superior predictor, even over whether somebody was conservative rather than liberal. So this confirms that people who defend patriarchy resist female leaders, and that's what we found in 2012 using the gender system justification scale as a moderator of backlash against female leaders in the laboratory. And it's nice to see that it could be replicated using an actual female leader, i.e. Hillary Clinton. But then remember, the goal of our study is to find out why patriarchy is defended. What's so great about it? So in order to find that out, we separately regressed gender system justification scores on our three ideologies: social dominance orientation, gender essentialism, and social Darwinism, again adjusting for demographics. And results showed that social Darwinism contributed more unique variants to gender system justification than SDO or gender essentialism. In fact, gender system justification contributed more than half or more than twice as much variance as SDO and gender essentialism. Or if you don't like regression because you're controlling for a lot of things, we can just look straightforwardly at the bivariate correlations. So gender system justification was significantly more related to social Darwinism at 0.64 compared to either SDO at 0.50 or gender essentialism 0.47. And you test for the differences between these correlations using what's called a Z-test, and we found significant differences. So, social Darwinism best predicted defending patriarchy, which in turn uniquely predicted favoring Trump over Clinton, along with political identity. In addition, we had a second study in which we examined support for Black Lives Matter movement and support for police brutality. And in study 3, we examined support for a White House budget that would slash the social safety net in order to give a tax cut to the wealthy. So this was, I think, Trump's first White House budget, and subsequently his budgets have gotten even more and more extreme in terms of wanting to give away all the money to wealthy people and decreasing social services that are needed by vast millions and millions of Americans, right? All to increase the already systemic inequalities we have in our culture. And what we found in each study is social Darwinism best predicted racial or class system justification, which in turn best predicted each outcome. So racial system justification best predicted support for Black Lives Matter and police brutality, and class system justification best predicted support for that draconian White House budget. So you can think of the model as ideology predicting defense of a social hierarchy, which in turn predicts outcomes that reinforce the social hierarchy. And the ideologies that we tested of those three suggest that social Darwinism is by far the best explainer. So social Darwinism helps to explain why systems of inequality based on gender, race, or class are deemed worthy of defense. And therefore, why not only female leaders are resisted, but also Black protesters and helping the poor. Social Darwinism boils down to the belief that by nature, certain groups are meant to dominate and others are destined to be dominated. Often it is the wealthy who are meant to dominate, but it extends to the idea that men should dominate women, white people should dominate people of color, Christians should dominate Muslims, and humans should dominate the earth. Notice that this worldview is antithetical to democracy, which requires mutual respect between political adversaries in order to compromise and take turns having power. If you're going to have peaceful transitions of power, then you have to have enough respect for your opponents that you're willing to like sort of live and let live, right? While we were in charge for a while, now it's your turn, we'll take turns back and forth. In national polls, Trump supporters are increasingly walking away from democracy and instead endorsing authoritarianism. Like they see him as a dictator, but they're fine with it because he's my dictator. And the reason why is because they fear having to share power with historically disadvantaged groups like women or people of color. Remember, Trump supporters are largely white, and there's more men than women in that group. Many pundits believe that Trump's election reflected white lash against Obama's presidency, but we can't forget that Trump ran against a highly qualified woman. Had his opponent been a white man instead of Hillary Clinton, Americans might have rejected Donald Trump's overtly racist and sexist campaign. And we're about to find out in November. Understandably, Clinton's campaign sought to feminize her in an effort to decrease backlash by emphasizing her communality. But that's the dilemma female leaders face, damned if they act like men and damned if they act like women. So women have to walk a tightrope where they have to, precisely balance being sort of masculine enough to be seen as qualified to lead, but also feminine enough to be seen as likable. And that's a real narrow tightrope that women are unfairly forced to navigate. Why? What's not to like about strong, self-confident female leaders? So far, the best answer is they trouble some people because they threaten patriarchy. Women who are smart, capable, and ambitious challenge the legitimacy of the gender status quo. Therefore, finding out that social Darwinists are especially likely to defend patriarchy is an important key to unlocking what ultimately drives backlash. It's just the beginning. We've just started this research, but discovering how best to combat social Darwinism itself is this pernicious, horrible ideology is a vital topic for future research and for the future of our democracy. So I'm just reminding you to vote, that your vote matters, and to vote like your rights depend on it and our democracy depends on it, because I've never had to say this before, it really does this time. Thank you for your attention. I am extra excited for our next assignment where you will be talking about your experiences with gender transgression. Did you experience backlash or did you sail through? And if you sailed through, then likely whatever you did is not a gender rule, but if you ran into resistance or felt awkward yourself, then chances are you were running into a prescription or a proscription, some kind of gender rule. Okay, so I will see you on Wednesday.